All right. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to you all coming into our presentation today. As you know, we are going to be presenting on resumes, best practices. We call it a resume lab, but it's really just a chance for us to talk about best practices when it comes to resume development, some new things that are happening today with writing a resume. So some of the information may sound familiar. You may have already covered some of this in your own resume development, but hopefully this will be a chance for you to get a good refresher and reminder of what we'll be doing. So if you need to step away, if you're at work or you need to take a break or you're being called away, whatever the case may be, feel free to do that. We are recording. So everybody will get a copy of the recording after the presentation. WebEx will do its thing. And then we turn it into a YouTube recording, a YouTube file, and I'll send that out with an email as soon as that's all done. Usually doesn't take about a day or the next business day to do that. So just feel free to step away if you need to. And then if you need to contact us later on for any follow-ups, our email is there. And then at the end of the presentation will be some reminders of other ways to contact our office for deeper conversations or questions, anything like that. So what we'll be doing today, we'll talk about applicant tracking systems, and we will now kind of incorporate that with AI. So artificial intelligence, which will be behind some of the screening processes that are involved with applying to different jobs. And then a way for you to understand and use ChatGPT, AI tools. If you need that to help support your resume development, we'll not do a huge deep dive into that because we actually have other presentations that cover using those resources, but we'll introduce it today with our presentation. We'll walk through a resume just to go over the basics of different sections, formatting, how they can look, why we would recommend certain styles above others, some resume do's and don'ts, some quick little rules of things to keep in mind to do on your resume, things to avoid on your resume to make it the best document when you're applying to different jobs. We'll look at a job description because job descriptions are really going to be your best friend when you're writing a resume. I'll get students every once in a while saying, "Hey, I'm a career changer. I'm switching jobs. I don't know what to put on my resume. I'm going into cybersecurity. I'm going into software development, but I'm coming from a totally different industry." The job description will give you exactly what that company's expecting. This is what we're looking for in a candidate. This is what we will be screening for on your resume. So that's going to be a really good sample to have. We'll do a quick little briefing on job descriptions as well and how to use them for your resume development. And then we'll have time for Q&A going forward. As you know, this is a good quick brief of looking at resumes. So we'll be glad to answer any questions to get you started. And then we can do a deeper dive if you want to make an individual appointment to talk about questions and such. And then we'll talk about how you can get your resume to us for review, how we handle those requests, and what that looks like going forward. So let's jump right into the applicant tracking systems. The reason we spend some time on this is because when you're applying to jobs, unless it's a federal job, you're applying through USA Jobs, which on USA Jobs, they will have actual people who will be looking at your resume and going through that actually in hand as you apply to a government job. And if you haven't thought about applying to a government job, I would recommend that you look at that. Every level of governments in the country will be looking for everybody. IT people, accountants, marketing folks. They'll be looking for MBAs, HR persons, stuff like that. So that could be a conversation for another time. But when we're talking about applying to private sector jobs or corporate jobs, they will nonetheless be using an ATS, applicant tracking system, to go through, not only to screen your resume, but it's also used to sort of categorize and catalog your application, so it's easy for them to have you in their system, as an applicant. So it serves as a first round of screening so that the ATS will review your resume. It will be looking for those keywords that could be related to the job description, skills, your education. So if they're looking for only people who have a bachelor's degree in a particular area, they may or may not accept somebody who has a master's degree that's also applying to that job. It's up to the company for that, and they will program that into the applicant tracking systems. So you want to pay attention at the job descriptions and do the best you can to meet everything that they're looking for. There is some wiggle room that's there, but you want to make sure that you're using those job descriptions to help you survive kind of these applicant tracking system screenings. I'd say there are two critical things to consider. One is you want to make sure you have a regular Word document. We have plenty of templates that we have created that align to the jobs or the degree programs here at WGU. So I know a lot of folks may go out and find a template that's online because it might be easier or more convenient to do a plug and play of information. But sometimes the formatting is not in the right, tune or the right alignment for those applicant tracking systems, or even for the positions that you're hiring for. This just quick little sample that I have on here was not on purpose, but it's a good example to show you don't want your picture on your resume, even if you're applying to a creative field like the FMA, or unless they ask for a picture on your resume. But for typical jobs that are out there in the private sector, you do not want to put your picture on that. You don't want to have a big black bar that's to the left of the resume that has icons for your address and phone number and email and all these things. There's a lot of coding that's behind those additional formatted stuff. So you don't want the applicant tracking systems to mistake that for spam or anything else, or it may ignore it as a picture, but we recommend just keep it to a simple Word document. You're not trying to make the impression of how it looks, sprinkles and glitter and bubbles and pictures. What's going to get their attention is, do you qualify for the job? Is this something that you are showing that gets into the right hands of the hiring manager? So those scans that are being made are important, and you want to make sure that you're using those job descriptions for the match rate. Now, let me say something real quick about that, because this comes up pretty often. If you're posting your resume on Handshake or LinkedIn, you may only be able to use or have visible one version of your resume. So sometimes, or if you're going to a job fair, you're not going to obviously know how to tailor it to a specific role. So at that point, you might be better off creating your resume that is in line to the industry versus being aligned to an individual specific job. So if it's software development or cybersecurity, for example, I would find 2, 3, or 4 different job descriptions. And are they asking for pretty much the same thing, or very similar? So get a variety of job descriptions for the same role, and then synthesize the information into your resume. so that you're trying to capture what you can for that industry. If you can only use one resume, say for LinkedIn, that would be a good way to do that. Find various job descriptions for the same role, synthesize the information, and then post your resume. And again, just as a quick, emphasis, if you're applying to individual jobs on Handshake or LinkedIn or Indeed or anything else, then you will be best to tailor your resume to that individual job. Now, I mentioned USA jobs because some folks will be looking for federal jobs or government jobs. I'm actually going through a certification program for as a federal career advisor. And so far, if you're using USA jobs, use their resume builder because it's going to give you and walk you through exactly what they would be needing as you apply to or post your resume to that USA jobs, or Go Government is another portal to do a federal job search. Use their tools. That's why they're there. That's what they want. And you'll be better off by doing that. That's my shameless plug for government jobs. But back to the private sector, if you're not getting responses, you're like, hey, I've done my resume, I think it looks great. Not putting out there, I'm getting no traction. Then it could be you're getting those low match rates for some reason. And that's why you want to go through our review process to be able to have a resume reviewed by our staff. I'll send you a link to how to do that because we do have a specific process to have your resume reviewed. I'm going to put this in the chat and the link is there. When you go there, click on resumes on that left navigation, and that will follow those steps. Step 1 is what you want to follow. Step 2 are the templates I talked about. And then the others are additional resources to help with your resume. So continuing on with the applicant tracking systems, another reason not to use a template that's out there on Microsoft Office or just out there on some other website, again, is that sometimes those ATS scans can be a little funky and notorious for reading, having a bad read, if you will, of any stylized templates that's out there. So just play it safe. Things to avoid would be columns, colors, tables, templates, things like that. You don't want to use text boxes of any kind. You want to avoid columns that are pre-formatted. These are great tools on Microsoft Word, but when it comes to applying, sometimes those cannot be seen through the applicant tracking systems. You don't want to use headers or footers. So a lot of people will use a header to put their name and their contact information, but we're getting feedback from employers saying they don't recommend that because their applicant tracking systems they use cannot see through those tables or through those text boxes. So that information is being missed and then they get kicked out. So keep it simple. Just keep it simple. A good, clean Word document is going to assure that it's being read. A PDF is still something that's probably not recommended. If you read those instructions on the job description and they say, please send just a Word document, then just send a Word document. Joy, the other one I mentioned was called Go Government. Now on the USA jobs, you can put I think up to five resumes, 5 documents, so cover letter and things like that. But the other job boards may only allow you to do 1. So just FYI with that. Or you may be able to post several, like on Handshake, but only 1 can be visible. So just some quick little additional tips that are there. Now, when it comes to using AI like ChatGPT, that's okay. That's not against the law, so to speak. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you're only using it to, start your writing process. You can look at the job description. You can do prompts in your, let's say Chat GPT, and you can put, um, write a one-page resume for software engineering, and then you can actually upload the job description and say, use the keywords in the job description. So you can come up with some prompts of that and then let ChatGPT create something for you. Then you can take that and say, okay, this is great because I didn't know how to write a summary profile at the top, but this gives me a really good start for that. Then make it your own work, then put it into your own document, use your own thought process to tweak it for your own use. The advantage of using some of these AI driven resources is that, again, it could save time. It can help, really kind of optimize your process that's there. Like I said, if you have an existing resume, you can upload that too, and then give it further instructions on how to fine tune some of the sections toward your objective, your career objective. The other is that, again, tailoring it to fit the job would be to cut and paste the job description into the Chat GPT along with maybe a sample of your resume. And then that could be helpful to create something. Have fun with it. Just see what happens. See if it works for you. There are all kinds of different things that are out there, not just Chat GPT, but there's also Copilot, which I think is a Microsoft product. There are some others that are going to be out there and being developed. And then I'm going to show you a list of some of the sites that will act as an applicant tracking system. So you can put your own resume and, again, the job description in, and it will grade it for you. So these tools can kind of critique, and it will grade you on your tone, your grammar, suggestions on maybe next steps or best practices. So it's really kind of cool to use those and see what happens that comes out from that. So here on this screen, you can see those sites that I talked about. Now, again, like I said, you're going to get a copy of this recording. So I'll pause here for a moment if you want me to wait, and you can write these down and then just put it in your own browser, or just later on check these out and use them for your own good. The last one, JobScan, is really good, and I've used that a lot. Jobalytics is the second to last, and that's really good to work with as well. But these are some samples that I've had students and some other folks use that have found pretty useful for their use. All right, I'm going to go on to the next slide. If you're just joining us, I know we've had folks kind of popping in. This is being recorded. You will get a recording, so you can go back and see any sections that you missed, or you can replay sections that you want to spend more time on. So you will get a recording of this presentation within the next couple of business days. This is just a quick sample of a resume. I personally make some changes with this, and I'll share those tips with you that I have. But if you start at the top, you have your first name, last name. I would not use all caps for this, as in this example, just so that it doesn't look like a bunch of just big letters that's there. If it's in mixed case, that looks a little better. It's easier to read. Under that, of course, you want to have your contact information. I usually say put it in the order of preference. How do you want to be contacted first? Well, I'd prefer to have a phone call. I want to talk to somebody. So I'd put my phone number first, then my email, and then my sitting state, which I did not put up here. Even if it's a remote job, some employers still like to know where are you coming from, which part, if you're applying to a remote job or out of your state or your city, I would still put that just to let them know where you're coming from. If you have a LinkedIn account, then I would include your LinkedIn URL. On LinkedIn, there are some good instructions on how to customize your LinkedIn URL, and that could be good to do for folks to find you. On LinkedIn, by the way, I know I'm kind of bouncing around here. You can use hashtags. So you can, on your LinkedIn profile, you can use hashtags that would be relevant to your industry, focus. I'm putting an example here if I can get writing here. So hashtag software engineer, hashtag HR manager, things like that, because those algorithms on your LinkedIn account will be visible as recruiters are scanning, different LinkedIn profiles. This is just one more kind of flag you're waving to say, hey, I'm here. Here's an extra way to find me. So that's a quick little tip on that. So back to resumes. Your professional summary is the section that is your 30-second commercial. So you really want to be able to have maybe 7, 8, 9 lines that are there. Again, your audience is the job description. So make sure you have a good grasp of what that role is. And then your professional summary or profile will speak to that job description or that industry that you're writing about. So don't make this generic. Don't just make it about here's what my background is, but it needs to be here's what my background is as it relates to the posted job. That's the important part of that second half of your focus is as it relates to the posted job, to the job description or the job announcement. Then you've got some flexibility here. The next thing you could put, if you're a job changer, you're changing industries, you might want to put your education section next to identify yourself as getting your bachelor's degree in XYZ or getting your master's in whatever it is that aligns to the job that you're applying to. If you have experience in that industry already, you've got some good solid background, then you don't have to list your education first. You could put it at the end of your resume, as is traditionally done. Now, the other section that might be interesting to provide, if you're in the IT industry, you can also then put maybe a technology competencies section. So that technology profile or technology competencies can identify operating systems, software languages, cybersecurity protocols, that you have, things like that. Then maybe you can have another section, better projects, IT projects, even if you're in a different industry and you've worked on project management, assignments, you can include that. And that's a good way to really optimize your resume. And then you might include also your certifications. That's one of the great things about WGU is that in different degree programs also include certain certifications. That could be a really good key feature to put on your resume. Then we get to your experience, right? We get to your professional experience. Folks have done a couple of things here. An optional element is give a line or two about what your role is. If I were to ask you, so Eric, tell me a little bit about your job. And you say, oh, well, my role was to do blah, 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 blah. then that could be like a little narrative that's under your job title, your company and location. Then under that little blurb that says optional here on the sample, you can have bullet points that highlight your specific accomplishments or your specific roles that you did. Um, but really talk about more than what you just did, but tell me, how did you do it? How did you do this particular thing you're putting on your resume? And if possible, any kind of way that you can give any kind of metrics, increased production by 7%, or something like that. Increased client development by 12%, something like that. If you can't, don't worry about it. But numbers get attention. So if it's possible, that could be a great thing to add as well. Don't obsess over it though. Don't. I couldn't when I developed one of my first resumes. I didn't have any metrics or data, but just a highlight, something for you to think about. Now, on the second page here, I wanted to highlight just what the education section could look like. And as you already know, you want to put your education, a couple of notes to make. Put it in reverse chronological order. So like, if you've got a master's degree you're getting from WGU and then a bachelor's, that master's will go first because that's your most current study. Then the bachelor's will go second. If you put a master's degree, you need to put a bachelor's, even if it's not relevant to your next career step. So you want to make sure that that's in there for that. That's just kind of the protocol or the process of resume writing. I've had people put, an MBA. They put their master's of business administration. They put maybe some relevant courses, a few key points of their capstone project, but their bachelor's was in psychology, and that's fine. But just put, master of, or bachelor of arts in psychology, University of Dallas, Irving, Texas, some key courses maybe. But if it's not relevant to your next step, then just keep the key courses off, but just put your degree title that's there. Avoid using associate's degrees. And the reason is that most jobs that are posted out there today, at least at that next professional level, will only really consider a bachelor's degree or higher. Now, I have had some folks say that they've had an associate's of an applied, let me say it again, an associate's of applied science in cybersecurity as they're getting their bachelor's in cybersecurity. And so if there's room, it doesn't hurt. It's not going to be a deal breaker. But if you're really trying to focus your resume to jobs that only ask for a bachelor's degree, then only give them a bachelor's degree. Now, some quick do's or don'ts. Again, these may be just reminders, things you already know, but I think it's worth reviewing quickly. So to the left, the green check. Again, you want to make sure that you don't need a title for your resume. You don't need to put the job title or anything like that. Your title is your name for that. And then they're going to look at your professional summary for that. Choose a classic font. We call a sans serif font like Calibri, Arial. Those are easier to read. They're quick to skim, so employers find it easier to read. Folks who are maybe getting their MBA or they're at a higher, maybe a C-suite level, they may use Times New Roman or a serif font that makes it look a little fancier, maybe look a little business-like. That's fine. That's not a deal breaker. We have just found that those sans serif fonts are a little easier to read and work with. Limit your resume, if at all possible, to one page. I know it's like, oh, no, there's no way I could do it. Well, it might not be. You know, you might be at a level of your work history that a two-page resume is necessary. But the key thing to keep in mind is if you have a two-page resume, is that second page also relevant to the next job that you're searching for? So you want to keep that in line with your decision on your page count. Maintain consistency in formatting. And what I mean by that is make sure that your bullet points are lined up the same way. Make sure your bullet points are the same size. And make sure your dates are lined up to the far right margin of the page and not staggered around. The reason that's important is that when your resume gets to a hiring manager and they're looking at your dates to make sure there are no gaps, they're going to skim down that right side of the page and they're just going to look at the dates. That makes it a lot easier for them to find the information they're looking for. Again, be intentional with your resume, customize it to a targeted job description, because again, those are going to be your audience. That's who you're writing to at this point. So it's going to help you survive those applicant tracking systems. I get a lot of folks every once in a while that will say, yeah, but this is, you know, that's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time if I have to customize every single job. So my first question is, how many positive replies have you gotten back? How many interviews do you have scheduled based on your job postings of the hundreds of resumes you sent out? Well, not many. Well, that may mean that you're not getting through those applicant tracking systems because it's not catching the keywords that you're looking for. One size does not fit all. So taking a little bit more time to be intentional may give you more payback than what you're looking for with that. So one quick question that's popped up: how do you address a gap in the resume? That's an individual kind of a customized answer because it depends on a few things. How long is the gap? If it's less than a year, then you probably don't need to worry about it. That's still a residual thing from the pandemic that employers know that folks might have been out of work for a year or two. So it's not going to be as big of a red flag as it once was. And then during that gap, what were you doing? Were you in school? Were you here at WGU? Then you would put that in as your job. Full-time student, bachelor's program in software development. Second line, Western Governors University, Salt Lake City, Utah. And then the dates, 2003 to present, something like that. So, and if it's more than that, if there's more information or there's more background to that, you can certainly make an appointment and contact one of our staff. And so then we can give the time to go through that a little slower and help you address those issues as well. Yeah, Nicole, that's a big one. If you're returning to work from family work, then it could be simple. And I have battled this for literally about 20 years. I've been in this business about 20 years, and I get different answers. But what has been consistent is, again, putting that in on your resume as though it were a job, but don't get crazy about it. But you could put full-time parents or stay-at-home parents, the dates, and then the second line would be Garin family, Dallas, Texas. So that's fine to put there. You could put that. And then your bullet points would be something that you could put in as sort of business speak, so to speak. So if you were at the workforce and you were taking care of your family, you could put skilled at scheduling and calendar development, mastered finances and budgets, So what did you do as a parent? You got to take care of, you know, multitasking, working with schedules, working with money, even some project management skills, working with vendors, that they need to come in and look at your AC. They need to come in and, you had a water leak, a plumber came in, things like that. But not going overboard, but putting in that kind of wording can be helpful, and that's what a lot of employers will ask is, if you have a gap and you were a stay-at-home parent or you work from home, what did you do that's going to be relevant to the job that we're posting? So it may take a moment to reflect and change some of the thinking in that direction. But I think once you do, it would be helpful. I'm reading this. Okay, so working a doctorate in public health. However, when I list my doctorate, yeah, it seems actually hinder my job opportunities because I'm overqualified. That's right. And if you're not going into public health, then it's not relevant. But definitely, if you put a doctorate or, and you're applying to a job that only requires a master's degree, then, folks are going to say, well, we're not looking for that level of education. So instead of opening a can of worms to say that's not relevant, or, you're not going to be paid at a doctor's level, a doctorate candidate's level of a PhD. So we're not even going to try. We're not even going to address that. Thank you for applying. We're going to go on to somebody else. Doesn't sound fair. Sounds kind of snarky. But unfortunately, that's the feedback I get with the time that I have talked to employers and hiring managers, because that's a question that definitely comes up in that. So, all right, let's see if that's on our don't list, a little red circle slash there. Don't copy the entire job description trying to be qualified for the job, because that will come back. And I had a student who did that. They took all the keywords, because I kept saying keywords, keywords, keywords. They took all the keywords from the job description, they put it at the bottom of their resume, and they highlighted it and colored it white so it disappears, but it's still there. But they misspelled a word, and so there was that red squiggly line under the misspelled word, or if it was unrecognized. And I'm like, why is that red squiggly line just sort of hanging out there in space? So what I did was I just highlighted the entire document, colored it black, and those words showed up. So we had a conversation about that's why that doesn't work, because they're going to find out, and then you will not get an interview for that position. So best practice is do the best you can, stick to your own skill levels with the job description, and include only what's relevant for that position, or transferable skills as well. I don't see this very often. I think I saw two this last couple of weeks where people at the bottom of their resume put references upon request. That dropped off years ago. If you still see that on sample resumes out there, then it means that sample resume is out of date, or that recommendation is out of date. When employers want references, they'll ask you. So when you're at that final, you're being considered as the final candidate, then they'll ask you for references, and then that you provide those references to them at that time. As I said earlier, avoid using tables, text boxes, borders, colors, headers, and footers, because those applicant tracking systems will either not be able to read through those, or it may be enough of confusion to that system that they will kind of kick your resume off to a spam folder. We say to avoid using personal pronouns like I, me, my, we, our. Again, this is a writing style that's unique to resumes. This is your document. You own this document. Your name is at the top of the document. So it's already in your voice. And so that's when you want to make sure, even if you use ChatGPT to get the writing process started, you want to then go and you want to edit that recommendation or that sample into your own voice. So that's not necessary to use those first person pronouns. And then the bottom, the least or the smallest point you can write in would be 10-point font. It's not that tiny, but if you need something to help you with space, you can have your margin set to narrow. That's done through Microsoft Word. And then you can have your fonts set to 10 point. Now, what I would recommend is that your name can be 16 point. Your headings like education and things like that can be, let's say 11 point. And then your fonts and bullet point text and your bullet points, that could be 10 point. If you want some numbers, that's there. Just a recommendation for that. All right. So a sample job description, since I've mentioned that a few times, here's a good way to read this and interpret the job descriptions. So what I have in red would be keywords that either are repeated more than once, twice, or 3 times, and also ones that seem to be a very strong part of what you would be doing during the job. The ones that are in bold red are the ones that are repeated more than once or twice. So if I were writing a resume, then I would make sure that I'm mentioning communications, collaboration, customer service, customer life cycle, things like that. So you can do this on your own. If you want to go through a job description with a highlighter, for example, I know that's low tech, but if you print it out, for example, or just use a Word document, you can highlight what key skills and requirements, especially if they say these are required, these are minimum, you've got to have this. If it's in that kind of strong wording and that tone, then that's something you want to pay attention to. Now, I sent you the link to how to find our resume page, but here's a visual of that as well. So if you want to, I'll go ahead and show this. Go to our career services page. At the top, click on career tools. That's going to take you to the next page. Under resource library, you'll see get the job. You'll click on that. And that will take you to the resource library. And then to the left, under the click the job is resumes. You'll click on that, and then you'll see those 4 steps to look at. Now, give me a quick minute because I'm going to actually do a live demo here. So I go to my page here. I'm going to go to Career Services homepage. I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on Career Tools. I get that little bar that opens up. I want to go to Get the Job. And then I get this here. I can just scroll down. There's resumes right there. So just scroll down and you'll find that. And you want to go through the resume course. It only takes a few minutes. We kind of require it. So you had the best practices there. When you click on that, it's going to open up another page. You may need to sign in, and that's okay. Use your WGU credentials. And then just go through these areas, these units, these modules. Doesn't take long. And you'll see what they're all about. You've even got additional resources for next steps. That'll open up a new page. So you've got all these layers of different things to look at. But at the very least, you want to go through the 4 or 5 steps of the resume that's there. and to help you out. But that's how you find that. Now, back to our PowerPoint presentation. And now it's time for you all, if you have questions. So you can ask whatever's come to mind, something about from this presentation, or if you came to this presentation with questions to be answered, I'd be glad to get those answered for you with the few minutes that we have left. If you need to drop off, feel free to do that. Here's our contact information that you can visit or give us the contact. If you choose to call us in, you're going to get a voicemail, and you're going to go straight to our voicemail box, leave the information that's there, that's requested, and then somebody will call you back either that same day or the next business day. So, but if you do need to drop off, feel free to do that. You're going to get a copy of this recording within the next couple of days. But in the meanwhile, if you have questions for the next few minutes that we have, I am glad to help you with those questions. So you will get an email. So you'll get a copy of the session because I will be emailing everybody who registered. So that will come to your student email address, and you'll see it in your mailbox. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for those of you who need to drop off. You have a great rest of your day too. And we'll look at some of the questions coming through here. How many key skills or technological competencies should I list, especially as someone with no professional experience whatsoever? What I would do, you might start with, again, look at the job description. What are they asking for? That's there. What are you covering in your coursework now? And if you have covered any certifications like CompTIA A+ or Network Plus or Security Plus, did you cover any specific, keywords or things that align to the job? If you see things on there and say, well, I'm not there yet, I know that's what we're studying, but I'm not at that particular course yet, then take the initiative to do some of your own research, some self-study. You can use, put this in the chat, LinkedIn Learning. If you have a LinkedIn account, there's LinkedIn Learning. It's at the top of the bar to the right. It just says Learning, I think. You have free access to that as a WGU student. When it asks you, how do you want to sign in? Click your school, I think it'll say your school or your education page, something like that. Click on that. You'll sign in with your WGU credentials and then put in the modules. What are you looking for? You can put in how to use, Python, something like that. It'll tell you what they've got in there to work with, something like that. So you can put in HR talent specialist. If that's something that you're interested in, it's like, I want to go into HR, but maybe do more training and work with employers rather than, anything else, policies. Those search engines, again, a lot of them are being kind of upgraded to AI backed technology. So I can't recall the term now, but it's natural language processing. I can't even say it. How can I type it? Natural NLP. So it's literally just typing in, what do you want to ask? Tell me about XYZ, so that can come up. Yes. So Shirley, if you've had your resume revised or looked at by us, and you're updating it, or you want to just get it done, and you've gone through that resume review process before, then you can submit your resume again for review. What I would say is, say in your message, I have already had WGU look at my resume, and I'm asking for a second review, something to that effect. Giving us that more information just helps kind of get the ball rolling. Thank you, Sophia. You have a great day too. And here's something I wanted to share with you. Give me a quick minute. This is just kind of a commercial. This is a list of our other events that we have coming up. So we have more things that are happening. And if you're interested in, cover letters, your interview preparation, we talked about LinkedIn a little bit, but I want to go deeper and talk about more of optimizing my LinkedIn profile. We have those that will be scheduled through July, and that's the link to find that information. Pardon me. They're just like this workshop. So if it's something that comes at a time of day that you can't make it, register anyway, because you'll still get a copy of the presentation. People love that. It's like, oh, I'm working, or I've already got something scheduled, but man, I want to go to that presentation. Register for it anyway, and you'll get a copy. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing our screen, and I'm going to turn off the recording.